Good morning. My name is Brent Davidson. I'm one of the operations section chiefs with Southwest Incident Management Team 3, here for an update on the Hermit Peak Calf Canyon fire for the South Zone. So a few things to talk about today. First off, I want to start up in the northern portion of the South Zone, if that makes sense. We have a division Foxtrot is responsible for this area of the fire. It covers two different things, two important portions for sure. It covers the lower country on the east side of the mountain range in Gascon, upper lower Rosiata, Maestas Canyon, and that surrounding area there. There's a whole lot of different communities and infrastructure out in that area. So they've been focusing on there, primarily just continue to be very vigilant in that area with making sure there's nothing that's going to threaten any of the homes and infrastructure in there. They've been working on that, for a long time now. I believe residents have been out, close to a month or longer. But they want to make sure that that's a safe place for people to return to and to make sure they're protecting all the values that are in there and picking up all the heat signatures and different things that might pop up. A little more specifics on that. The upper part of Maestas Canyon off the 276 road. It's really above all but just a few of the homes and structures in there, and that's one of the primary places they're working right now. Have some structure protection actions going on there, sprinklers and line construction and folks in there just making sure that the remainder of the fire that's active as it moves up toward the top of the mountain doesn't impact any of those. Moving on a little bit, still in the same area but up high in the wilderness on the west side of the skyline, kind of over in this area right here. I know that's an area of concern for a lot of people. Just kind of speak to that a little bit. The fire came up from the bottom of the hill and kind of worked its way up over the last 3-4 weeks. And within I think 4 or 5 days ago, it finally got up to the top. It was some spotting and some slopping over the top of the ridgeline, over the skyline area, and resulted in this fire that's over in this area. I was able to fly a portion of that fire yesterday. There is still some activity up high. It's burning in kind of a mix of fuel types and terrain and things like that. There's a burn scar from a previous fire in 2002. I believe that's the Truchas fire, and the fire's kind of moved north into that old burn scar. There's still some vegetation in the burn scar, but it's not as thick as the surrounding fuels and vegetation. There's quite a bit of mixed conifer up high. And then there's also a Bear Creek drainage that comes in here, and the fire is kind of on the edges of that as it progressed west. There's a number of natural barriers to fire spread in that area. Some rock, some more sparse fuels, some more high alpine kind of meadow type conditions, and so it's kind of hung up in some of those. Not to say that it doesn't have potential to still move around, but it has gotten into some areas where there's not just active fire around that whole portion of the fire. So we will continue to monitor that from the air, just to kind of keep tabs on it, looking at different methods to address some of that fire. There's discussion of using some aircraft with water instead of retardant, being that it is in the wilderness. We want to take care to manage that the appropriate way. Maybe using some water and some aircraft, Some of the best tactics for some of that is early in the morning, late at night, to kind of hold that moisture in and get good recovery and see if that can limit the spread out there. We'll continue to assess and see if there's other options to safely engage out there. It is in some pretty thick fuels in some parts and also in some really rugged terrain that may not be safe for firefighters to engage. So hopefully that helps out with that area. Also keeping tabs on its westward movement. And if there's any impact that could be had to the communities up in the northern part of the Pecos Canyon, just re-evaluating if they need to be evacuated or not. At this time, no evacuations, and we'll keep tabs on that to see what it does and what our options are in the area. Moving down a little bit further, we've been holding portions of the Skyline Trail with folks, equipment, people, aircraft, still being very successful in some of this northern part of the Skyline, and also down here in the southern part. The part in the middle has been a little bit more challenging. We're continuing to work on seeing if there are options to keep fire spread limited right next to where the fire's at. Some direct options in there with equipment, aircraft, and people, and just seeing if there's opportunities and it's safe to do so. In the meantime, We continue to build an indirect piece of line that comes from Barias Peak, heads west a little bit, and then comes north across Bull Canyon and continues on up to the upper portions of the Skyline Trail. So building that indirect piece, and if the fire continues to move west and we don't have opportunities to get it to a direct or closer in, we have the option for an indirect line and some burnout operations. Moving on, the Barias Peak area, the southwest corner of the fire down here, continue to have good success there, stopping or limiting the spread to the west and the south. Continue to be engaged in there to make sure that holds. We do have 2 structure protection groups for now and some other folks. They've been working in this upper and lower Colonias, Cow Creek, Bull Canyon, and beyond, making sure that they have good structure protection in place. In addition to that, folks have been moving their efforts over into the Pecos Canyon, and they're doing the same thing over here, using pre-existing structure protection plans from previous fires and reevaluating and getting some sprinkler systems, doing some preparations, looking at lines to protect communities in there. Coming on around to the south, more contingency efforts, moving south along the Skyline Ridge and to the west, just in case there's a need to have some fallbacks in this southwest corner. Coming around to the south and along the east side, everything still looks really good. We still do have resources in the area, continuing to make sure there's nothing that surprises us, that all the big effort and all the good work that was done in here stays the same, holds, and we don't have any issues or any threats to the public. I think that's the end of the update for today. Thanks.